The Minister for Education.
Sir, I move that I have leave to introduce a bill for an Act to amend the Children and Young People Oversight and Advocacy Bodies Act 2016 and to make related amendments to various other acts.
Is it seconded? Is it seconded? Put the question at once. Those in opinion say aye. Against say no. It's carried. Clerk.
Bill for an Act to amend the Children and Young People Oversight and Advocacy Bodies Act 2016 and to make related amendments to various other acts.
Minister for Education.
Thank you, sir. I move that this bill be now read a second time. Today I introduce the Children and Young People Oversight and Advocacy Bodies Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People Amendment Bill 2020. The bill will amend the Children and Young People Oversight and Advocacy Bodies Act 2016 to establish the position of the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People in legislation. Ms April Laurie is currently appointed as the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People under the Constitution Act. The transitional provisions of this bill provide that Ms Laurie's appointment as the Commissioner will continue under the Children and Young People Oversight and Advocacy Bodies Act 2016 until the end of her current contract on the 3rd of December 2021. I would like to acknowledge Ms Laurie's work in the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People role since her appointment commenced in late 2018. Sir, Aboriginal children and young people are disproportionately represented in within the state's most disadvantaged and vulnerable children and youth. They are more likely to be absent from school and generally have poorer health outcomes than the non-Aboriginal children and young people. They are also more likely to be subject to out-of-home care and the criminal justice system. As a government, as a community, as a state, we must do more to improve the outcomes for Aboriginal children and young people. This bill establishes the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People in accordance with the relevant recommendations set out in the report of the Statutory Review of the Children and Young People Oversight and Advocacy Bodies Act 2016 conducted last year by Mr Richard Dennis AM PSM. Accordingly, the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People will be established with legislative provisions that are equivalent to those that apply to the Commissioner for Children and Young People, insofar as they relate to Aboriginal children and young people. This includes, amongst other things, provisions that set out the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People's independence and functions and powers to conduct systemic own motion inquiries in respect of Aboriginal children and young people. The bill also sets out that a person appointed to be the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People must be an Aboriginal person. This requirement also applies to a person appointed as an acting Commissioner. The functions of the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People will be to promote and advocate for the rights and interests of all Aboriginal children and young people, or a particular group of Aboriginal children and young people in South Australia. To promote the participation of Aboriginal children and young people in the making of decisions that affect their lives. To advise and to make recommendations to ministers, state authorities and other bodies, including non-government bodies, on matters related to the rights, development and well-being of Aboriginal children and young people at a systemic level. To inquire under Section 20M into matters related to the rights, development and well-being of Aboriginal children and young people at a systemic level, whether a governmental system or otherwise. To assist in ensuring that the state, as part of the Commonwealth, satisfies its international obligations in respect of Aboriginal children and young people. To undertake or commission research into topics related to Aboriginal children and young people. To prepare and publish reports on matters related to the rights, development and well-being of Aboriginal children and young people at a systemic level, and to undertake such other functions as may be conferred on the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People by or under the Act or any other Act. Sir, in the performance of these functions, the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People is required to consult with and engage Aboriginal children and young people and their families and communities. And in particular, the Commissioner should seek to engage those groups of Aboriginal children and young people and their families and communities whose ability to make their views known is limited for any reason. The jurisdiction of the Commissioner for Children and Young People, as a Commissioner for all South Australian children and young people, is not changed by this bill. However, given the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People's specific role in respect of Aboriginal children and young people, the bill includes provisions that clarify the interaction between and jurisdiction of the two commissioners. The bill sets out that the two commissioners should, in the performance of their functions, collaborate on matters of common interest to such extent as is reasonably practicable. It is intended that the collaboration of the commissioners be referenced in legislation but dealt with in greater detail by way of a protocol developed and managed administratively by the commissioners, given the potential for the commissioners to consider, act in relation to, inquire into or report on similar matters. This will ensure that the commissioners are aware of any overlapping activities or work occurring on matters of common interest. This approach was recommended in Mr Dennis's statutory review report. Notwithstanding the intended operation of this protocol, the bill provides for the minister to whom the Act is committed to determine jurisdictional disputes between the commissioners in relation to which commissioner should conduct an inquiry in a particular matter as distinct from other functions of the commissioners, such as undertaking research and publishing reports. This problem-solving mechanism is necessary given the respective roles of the Commissioner for Children and Young People and the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People in relation to all children and young people in the state and Aboriginal children and young people, and given the Commissioner's inquiry powers under the Act are substantial. Existing Section 16 and the new Section 20N providing the Commissioners with the powers of Royal Commission in respect of inquiries conducted under Section 15 and the new Section 20M. Subject to the Act, the Commissioners have absolute discretion to conduct inquiries once the required elements in Section 15 and the new Section 20M are met. So, when an issue arises concerning the appropriate jurisdiction in relation to the conduct of an inquiry, the bill requires the Commissioners to attempt to resolve which Commissioner should inquire into a particular matter. If they are unable to resolve the issue, and only if they are unable to resolve the issue, the matter is then referred to the Minister for determination. The jurisdictional dispute provisions set out in proposed new sections 14C and 20L do not allow the Minister to direct or to control the Commissioners. Their independence from the Crown or any Minister or officer of the Crown is set out under Section 7 and the new Section 20A. Rather, the Minister would be making a determination, and the Act restricts the Commissioners from acting in respect of a specific matter. To all members, the Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People will provide a voice for Aboriginal children and young people in this state to have greater agency in the making of decisions that affect their lives. The Commissioner will support the improvement of the health, safety and well-being of Aboriginal children and young people by promoting and advocating for their rights and their interests. A similar Commissioner, sir, was established in Victoria a number of years ago. The Victorian Commissioner for Aboriginal Children and Young People has promoted significant systemic reform in that state in respect of the services provided to Aboriginal children and young people. It is anticipated that the establishment of such a Commissioner with statutory powers and functions in South Australia will provide similar benefits. I commend the bill to the House, and I seek leave to have the explanation of clauses inserted into Hansard without my reading through them.
Leave is sought. Leave granted. Thank you.